forgiving. Cider is not, wine is not, beer is not, but mead for some reason is very forgiving. Beat that up for the first 2-3 weeks, and when you rack it in a couple months, beat it up. You're not going to put enough oxygen in there, in my opinion, to make that taste oxidized out of the gates. And
just to confirm, you're saying you want to beat it up and put oxygen every racking until you bottle? Is that what you're getting at?
Not every racking, but at least in the first couple months, first 3-4 months, you're absolutely fine in doing that. And it'll age well. A lot of people say, oh, well, you're taking away its ageability in the bottle, but I don't know how true that is. I mean, I'm not saying, spray it up in the air to land in a large tub, and, I'm just saying when you're racking it, rack it with some force. Let it splash. You're going to see a lot of CO2 come out. That's immediately going to blanket the mead. There's no oxygen getting into that, and get that CO2 out as best you can.
Well, it may be you are actually damaging the longevity in the bottle, but mead is known to last for 120 odd years. So if it only lasts for 60, I'm still happy.
Yeah.
Well, my corks are only guaranteed for 10, so I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, the Midas mead survived for how many? 2,300 and some odd years.
Yeah, I've practiced that technique for 17 years, and I have bottles of mead that are just that old, and they're not oxidized.
Actually, one of the wine kit instructions I've got instruct you to splash the hell out of it at the first racking. So,
yeah, at a bare minimum, if that scares you, at a bare minimum, do it for your first racking. Don't worry about it later. But by doing that, you're saving yourself some time, because the reason meads, not the reason, but a reason meads always seem to take a year. It was only a few years ago when we were all like, a lot of people were like, well, it takes a year to make good mead. I mean, some people I think forget that. And the reason that we're able to turn it around quicker is having this knowledge. Things change. It used to be that butter was bad and margarine was good. Now margarine is bad and butter is good. We're always learning, and I think you can over oxygenate a mead for sure, but in a 5-gallon batch, within the first 3 or 4 months, you're not going to do it. It's still
the only one I've
CO2.
ever had. The only one I've ever had oxidized has been with an open, with a dry airlock for, I think it was at least a year before it went funny.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I had a bottle of mead from my very first batch of mead that sat on my kitchen floor with a single piece of saran wrap over the top of the bottle for 10 years. And it was still good.
Yeah. I don't know what...
Very forgiving.
Yeah, the
it's very
oxidized stuff's still
forgiving.
drinkable.
Yes,
it's funny.
I
didn't know
port-style meads, and they're delicious.
I didn't know about the carbolic acid thing. I didn't realize. I thought it would eventually, you could beat it out at any time. I didn't realize that there was a point in where the CO2 became the acid and stayed in there.
Yeah, it becomes carbonic, and it's you can still pull it out as it goes. I mean, at 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, there are ways of still pulling CO2 out without having to introduce oxygen to it. I mean, a lot of people use nitrogen to pull out CO2 because it binds with the nitrogen molecules. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But I'm just saying to help a home brewer who may not have, the equipment of a professional winery or mead maker, there are some small steps that you can do, or small, little techniques that you can do that will produce a softer mead quicker. And I think my personal opinion is CO2 management is one of the big ones.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely.
So when you do batches with fruit, do you tend to do your fruit fermentation in primary or secondary? Do you mix it all up to begin with, or do you do it in separate stages?
Depends on the flavor I'm going for. So most of like we have a hopped blueberry maple. The fruit goes in fermentation. There are other meads that I'll do some in fermentation and I'll do some in secondary. It depends on what I'm going for and what kind of building blocks that I'm trying to produce. And blueberries tend to be one of those flavors that, can really do well through fermentation, that have some great flavors produced when fermented, and also bring through that tannic quality of the skins and the color and the flavor as well. It doesn't oftentimes taste like blueberry pie or blueberry wine, but it is that subtle blueberry. One of the things that I really pride myself on is I don't hide behind any flavors. I really like producing meads of subtlety, and I think they take finesse and they're hard to do. And having the ability to taste everything that is said on the ingredients in a balance, not in a alcohol forward or a fruit forward or a honey forward or over forward type of way. Everything is kind of in unison and in balance and everywhere it needs to be. Kind of like balancing music, EQing music. You want your horns up and to the right. You want your drums back center, and you're kind of creating these little blocks and visualizing it more three-dimensionally than you are two-dimensionally. And but it depends on the fruit. It depends on what you're going for. That's kind of a long-winded answer to that question, but
that's the perfect answer.
Yeah, that's kind of how I do it. That's how I visualize it. I know a lot of people do both. And I said earlier that there's a lot of post-ferm doctoring that goes on. Discerning palates can really taste that. And if something is so fruit forward and, sweet and just obvious, chances are that's post-ferm doctored. It's really hard to do a single, primary fermentation of those kinds of fruits to get the true to flavor fruit come out at you like that. Not to say it's impossible, but it is certainly a big finesse.
So when you say balance and you're talking about the orchestra, et cetera, do you mean like a mixed?
The balance of alcohol, acidity, tannin, sweetness, those all have to play a part. And you don't want one to punch you in the mouth while the other one's barely detectable. If you're telling me it's a hopped blueberry maple mead, I better taste all of that plus the honey. And I think it's really just the way when you drink it, it tells the story. Oftentimes you taste things and it's, front of the palate, mid palate, back palate, finish, and then you can taste it with your olfactory glands. When you breathe, there's a lot of different ways we taste things. And to take that and go, oh, I want this mid palate and that finish and this, it's a little bit more of a crapshoot than that. But you can kind of dial things in to get those flavors that you're looking for, and you can do it without adding. A lot of people add acid and again the post-ferm doctoring and all of that. You can get those flavors, but it just takes that finesse. A lot of the weirdomels that are out there. I mean, I think a lot of them have that fermentation, but then at the end, there's a good amount of them that are post-ferm doctored to get those kind of wild flavors. But it depends on what you're going for. We do a raspberry mead that is fermented with raspberries, but then we also add raspberries at the end, and we add them in a very large way, and it's just big and bold and juicy and flavorful. That was what we were going for.
So when you do that, yeah. Have you already stabilized it? Are you using whole raspberries or do you juice them?
No, we use whole fruit, whole raspberries. Yeah, it's pretty rare that we use any juices that we either didn't produce ourselves or that we.
And it's fully stabilized at that point, so there's no chance of them fermenting.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean you'll get and that's another benefit of 6 months. See, we don't have any of the crazy filtration that's out there. Not to say I wouldn't want it, but we just haven't done that. So the 6 months helps us with that because I can, things go dormant, things settle out. I'm racking, I'm doing those things, we stabilize as well. As a commercial meadery, I find it to be wise. It's kind of like buying insurance.
So when you add it post ferment, like the raspberries that you're talking about there, what's the point in having them pre ferment as well?
Well, I'm sorry, I just heard some crazy message.
Thank you, Vicky.
Yeah, we've got a caller trying to call in, and I'm having some minor equipment issues, so trying to get that fixed. And I think I caught him calling in while I was calling him. So sorry. Go on ahead. I apologize.
No worries. What was the
I'll start
again?
again. It's Hamish. Sorry. The question was you add your raspberries after ferment as well as before ferment. What does adding them before ferment give you that after fermenting doesn't give you already?
On a microscopic level, I mean, I couldn't tell you, but I feel like the flavors that you get, you're going to get just a different dimension of raspberry. Raspberries are, most fruits, they're not extremely high in sugar. This depends on the fruit, of course. But you're really trying to go for, you're not really necessarily fermenting everything else that's not sugars. I don't know if that's really a great way to put it, but there's a lot more to a raspberry than just the sugar that the yeast is going to ferment. So having that in there just changes the flavors. It's just something that we've done. I've never taken it through like a map spec to see, where the spikes are to find out if there's more of this or more of that. It's just more of a sense, more of a
I'd have been surprised
thing.
if you had.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. You never know who's got access to them.
We have a caller who just called in to join us and possibly have a question. Who's calling?
Good evening. This is Matt from Minneapolis. How are you?
Hi, Matt from Minneapolis. We're good. Welcome.
I actually met Ash at UC Davis earlier this year. It was kind of happenstance. We were having lunch, and it was the first time I heard about Sap House and unbelievable kind of talk and discussion that he had at UC Davis. And I guess from listening to the conversation, I was wondering, he mentioned that he was making a bochet, and I was kind of interested in how he actually made a bochet, so on a commercial scale. So I figured I'd call in, and I apologize for causing any technical difficulties.
Oh, and it wasn't you, Matt. It was me entirely. I apologize for hanging up on you not once but twice. And I couldn't make the call. Every time I answered you, it put the show on hold, and I couldn't tell it to. For some reason, it's not just letting me join you into the group. So, I just called you back. Sorry.
Well, then all of a sudden I seemed like the jealous boyfriend that just kept calling back.
He's that guy. I blocked him like ages ago, but
Don't be that guy.
To find a way.
Yeah, really.
He tries to get on the show every week.
Every week. Oh my God, he's so annoying.
Well,
is this guy bothering you, Ash?
He's following me.
Stalker alert.
I love it. Matt, awesome. Great to talk to you again, man. So the way that I made our bochet for this one, it's a sizer bochet. So, of course, we used local apple cider. And what we used to cook down our honey was a very large, what we call a lobster pot. And we used a turkey burner. You've seen people fry their turkeys, those big giant burners, very similar to like beer brewing, those very large burners. We used that in a very large pot, and it took hours and hours and hours. I'm waiting for that person to create the crock pot that's 200 gallons. No one's done it yet.
That's my kind of crock pot there.
I can do that.
Well, you've got a customer. So I really just had that turkey burner. I didn't want the honey on direct